In 2020, a coffee company admitted to faking $310 million in sales. Its stock dropped 97% overnight. It got kicked off the Nasdaq. Its CEO was fired. It filed for bankruptcy. Every analyst, every reporter, every investor said the same thing: it's over. Today, that same company operates over 30,000 stores. It has more locations in China than McDonald's. It out-earns Starbucks in the world's biggest coffee market. And it is preparing to relist on the same U.S. stock exchange that threw it out 5 years ago. This is Luckin Coffee. And the fact that it still exists at all is one of the strangest, most fascinating business stories of the last decade. Let's go back to where it started. January 2018. Starbucks has been in China for nearly 2 decades. Comfortable, dominant, completely untouchable. Then, Luckin opens its first stores in Beijing and Shanghai and immediately plays an entirely different game. No ambient music, no leather chairs, no $6 lattes you sip for an hour. Luckin built a pure caffeine delivery machine. You order on the app, you pick it up, you leave. That's it. The growth was staggering, from 0 to 4,507 locations in just 2 years. By the end of 2019, Luckin had already overtaken Starbucks in total store count and claimed over 40 million customers. Then, in May 2019, just 18 months after opening its first store, it listed on the Nasdaq, raised $600 million, and hit a $3.9 billion valuation. That kind of trajectory doesn't just turn heads, it makes people question everything they thought they knew about how fast a brand could scale. And then, the whole thing blew up. April 2020. An internal investigation confirmed what short sellers had been whispering about for months. Luckin had fabricated $310 million in sales, nearly half of its reported 2019 revenue. The CEO and COO were fired. The SEC fined the company $180 million. Shares collapsed 97%. Over $12 billion in stock value was erased in weeks. The company filed for bankruptcy and was delisted from the Nasdaq by June 2020. Analysts called it the Enron of China's tech scene. Most companies don't survive a scandal a fraction of that size. Luckin had just admitted to one of the largest corporate frauds in Chinese history. So by every rational measure, it was finished. And yet, let's talk about why Luckin didn't die. Because the answer isn't luck. It was a very deliberate set of decisions made under extraordinary pressure. The first and most important one came from a private equity firm called Centurium Capital. After the scandal broke, Centurium injected over $700 million into Luckin to cover legal fees, fines, and restructuring costs. The original CEO and COO were already gone, fired the moment the fraud came to light. But Centurium didn't flood the company with its own executives either. Instead, they backed the incoming leadership team under new CEO Jinyi Guo and let them run it. The message was clear: we believe the business works. Prove it. That kind of conviction, backed by $700 million, changed the entire trajectory of what came next. The second thing that saved Luckin was one it didn't plan for: COVID-19. When the pandemic hit, Starbucks was in trouble. Its entire China model was built around comfortable mall-based stores where people lingered. Those locations shuttered. Luckin's smaller grab-and-go spots on campuses and in office buildings stayed operational. While its biggest competitor was bleeding, Luckin was quietly picking up customers it might never have won otherwise.
And then, Luckin did something that nobody expected from a company still crawling out of bankruptcy. It started innovating, aggressively, creatively, and specifically for the Chinese consumer. This is the part of the playbook that every entrepreneur should study carefully: the coconut latte. It sounds simple, but this one drink became a phenomenon. Since its launch in 2021, Luckin has sold over 300 million cups of it. Not 300 million over a decade, 300 million and counting since 2021. That's not a menu item, that's a cultural moment. And it told Luckin something important: that Chinese consumers didn't necessarily want a traditional coffee experience. They wanted something fun, affordable, and uniquely theirs. So Luckin doubled down on that insight. In September 2023, it partnered with Kweichow Mutai, China's most prestigious and expensive national liquor, to launch the Mutai flavored latte.
A bottle of the actual Mutai spirit can cost over $400. The latte cost $5. The idea alone was brilliant. Young consumers who could never afford a bottle of Mutai could now taste it for the price of a regular coffee. The response was immediate. On day one, Luckin sold 5.42 million cups. Single-day revenue from this one product crossed 100 million yuan, over $13 million in 24 hours. By the end of 2023, the Mutai latte had sold 45.83 million cups, with total sales exceeding 900 million yuan. Look at the pattern here. This was not random product experimentation. Every single collaboration Luckin made was engineered to do two things at once: generate a cultural moment online and bring in a customer segment they didn't already own. The Mutai latte brought in older, more affluent consumers who were Mutai loyalists. The Tom and Jerry cheese latte brought in younger consumers at just 9.9 yuan a cup. Each product was a bridge into a new audience. Meanwhile, the core offer stayed exactly the same: great coffee, fast, cheap, on your phone.
Now let's talk about where this all lands in real numbers. In 2023, Luckin surpassed Starbucks in China in both revenue and store count for the first time ever. The company that was declared dead in 2020 beat the most iconic coffee brand on the planet in its own backyard just 3 years later. By the most recent reporting period, Luckin's revenue had jumped 47% year over year to $1.7 billion. As of early 2026, Luckin operates over 30,000 stores across China. Starbucks has roughly 7,000. That is not a coffee war anymore. That is a different category entirely. And Luckin is not stopping there. The company has opened stores in New York City on Starbucks' home turf, and its CEO, Jinyi Guo, has confirmed the company is actively preparing to relist on a U.S. main board. The brand that was kicked off the NASDAQ for fraud is now preparing to walk back through the front door.
So what does this story actually teach us? A few things worth holding on to. First, a scandal is not automatically a death sentence if the underlying business model is sound. Luckin's fraud was real and serious, but the reason people kept buying coffee at Luckin wasn't because of the financials on a NASDAQ filing. It was because the product was good, the price was right, and the experience fit their lives. Strip away the fraud, and the business still worked. Second, the company that understands its local consumer deeply enough will always have an edge over the one importing a model from somewhere else. Luckin didn't try to be a Chinese Starbucks. It became something Starbucks could not replicate: fast, digital-first, affordable, and culturally plugged in. The biggest question this story raises isn't whether Luckin deserved a second chance. The market already answered that. The real question is this: when a company collapses under the weight of its own scandal, what actually determines whether it comes back? Is it the size of the fraud? The quality of the lawyers? Sometimes. But in Luckin's case, it came down to something far more basic. The coffee was good, and people kept showing up.